With millions of people being forced to stay home to help stop the spread of COVID-19, many have found creative ways to virtually stay social. Happy hours, trivia nights, birthday parties, and Zoom, one of dozens of video conferencing services, has risen to the top thanks to intense separation measures and a profound resonance with this new social distancing culture.
I think it's the Steve Jobs phrase that he used to talk about when he described products. It just works.
When using Zoom, it's much more pleasant and also more easy to have it be a conversation.
The company's stock rose 67% from the beginning of February to the end of March, while the S&P 500 went down 20%. Daily downloads of the Zoom app have increased 30 times year over year, and it has been the top free app for iPhones in the United States since March 18th.
And the fact that Zoom is growing, 90%, while, Skype is likely shrinking, WebEx is likely shrinking, tells us Zoom is gaining share at a really high rate.
This tech darling, originally servicing mostly businesses and universities, is now in the business of connecting everybody in a time when separation is so important.
It's deeply human. I think in these times of isolation, the idea of a connection, of empathy, and of knowing you're not by yourself is so important.
Let's take a look at how Zoom became the go-to platform, how it's handling the influx of users, and whether the company's success can be sustained after offices open back up. Zoom hit the stock market in April of 2019 with huge success, and after just 3 days of public trading, it became the most valuable stock to go public up to that point of 2019.
There is a sense that these guys very much are the hot IPO for big tech for the year.
Investors liked what the company was doing, despite numerous competitors like Microsoft, Google, and Cisco, who already had a stronghold on the video conferencing market.
When they went public, they were more than doubling their revenue at a really impressive scale of, several $100 million, and doing so while being profitable and actually generating cash.
The company remained a popular stock, but it really took off at the beginning of February 2020.
If you ask me what the key to this market is, it's Zoom. I mean, it's a Zoom economy. You heard Hans talk about it. This is not changing.
It is technology that comes from a person who knows very well that little category. Eric Yuan, the CEO, used to be the head of engineering for WebEx, and that was before it was bought by Cisco in 2007. And so he knows that category in a way that most people don't.
But there are so many other services like Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, Google Hangouts, and business solutions like WebEx, Microsoft Teams, GoToMeeting, and others.
Microsoft and Cisco are so deeply embedded in enterprises. If I'm a big Microsoft shop, I'm not ready in this environment to say, let me experiment with Zoom and see what happens. I'm just going to double down on Teams, or I'm going to double down on WebEx.
Skype alone has 40 million daily active users, a 70% jump month over month. Talking business, Cisco's WebEx platform expected to host 13 billion meeting minutes in March. But Zoom has surged to the lead. Zoom said it saw a huge spike in users in March, with 200 million people per day, up from about 10 million per day in December.
Zoom is experiencing a network effect. Because one person uses it, then that person says, hey, I am doing a video call and I'm doing it on Zoom. Please join Zoom. Next thing you know, you have 5 more people using it.
And it has been able to handle the increased popularity. Zoom has been careful to put resources in bolstering its capabilities during this high usage time.
The chief financial officer, her name is Kelly Steckelberg, she said that, hey, already we are careful about how we use our infrastructure. We make sure that our infrastructure is never going beyond 50% of the actual capacity of the infrastructure, so that basically there's never a situation where all of our servers are maxed out.
Zoom is a cloud-based platform based on Amazon's AWS and Microsoft's Azure servers. So if Zoom sees a huge spike in meetings, it can easily access more space, which has given it a lead over its competitors.
I think the reason Zoom has much more reliability than the other people is because it was built to be a cloud-native solution. Microsoft Teams is using a combination of, I believe, SharePoint as a backend as well as Skype. And so you're using code that was written more than a decade ago and trying to make it fit in a cloud environment. WebEx was built for hardware meeting rooms, right? It wasn't built for, hey, bring your own device and mobile devices. And so that is why I think Zoom is scaling a lot better than these other people.
Zoom's easy-to-use interface and free option have turned it into the go-to platform for fitness classes, university classes, family meetings, happy hours, and dance parties. There are even Zoom weddings now.
Now, this pandemic is making us realize that we kind of want relationships that matter and that will survive through this distance that we're in right now and this self-isolation that we're in right now.
That's Ileana Valdez and Patricia Gorska, two university students who created a Zoom-based blind dating service called OK Zoomer.
We were expecting maybe 200 people to sign up. We would just manually match them. And then we were reaching 600 in a few hours. And we were like, we need more people working on this.
OK Zoomer now has about 13,000 unique users. But OK Zoomer is just one of many clever ways people are connecting on Zoom.
Weddings, bachelor parties, bar mitzvahs, meditation sessions.
Gary Goldman and Anuva Kalawar have organized daily Zoom-based events, including wellness seminars and a talent show for their organization Out in Tech. They're calling it Queers on Zoom.
We wanted to provide a digital platform Mondays through Fridays for the hundreds and thousands of LGBTQ techies in our communities. We've had everyone from a 13-year-old student and her dad to the CTO of Axios join.
And it's been the go-to platform for preschools, grade schools, and universities who now hold online classes.
I had never taught online before in any format. I had a lot of uncertainty about exactly how it would work, and I also had assumptions about it that proved to be incorrect.
Jeannie was not alone in questioning how work, school, and life would continue online, but adaptation led to some interesting results.
You're looking at their face, you're really seeing their expressions, and they're about as close to you as you are to them and to everyone else, and you can really engage in this exchange and this conversation in some ways it can be better.
But bringing all of our social activities online has brought some privacy concerns along with it. All of a sudden, millions of people around the world, including some powerful dignitaries, are broadcasting themselves online. Zoom has been sued for sharing user data with third parties without users knowing. In 2019, Apple had to silently update its Mac OS after a vulnerability was discovered that allowed any website to forcibly join a user to a Zoom call, with their video camera activated without the user's permission. Zoom released a fixed version of their app as well, and Zoom worked with Apple to resolve the issue. Some publications are commenting on Zoom's privacy policy, claiming the company has more control over video content than users would assume. New York Attorney General Letitia James wrote a letter to the company asking if any new security measures had been put in place to protect users since the sudden increase in traffic. Zoom says whether you are a business or a school or an individual user, we do not sell your data, and details how users can manage their data on Zoom's platform.
I do think the more of these sort of incidents that happen, it's going to be, maybe it might create a little bit of incremental pressure on Zoom.
Some schools are requesting or requiring teachers to record their Zoom classes, which can create an uneasy space for students.
My school is recommending that, or maybe requiring that every teacher automatically record all classes this semester. If you say something that's wrong or that you actually happen to disagree with, even only seconds later, that's okay. That's part of it. That's part of the process. And I think that the recording gives me some concern.
Another recent privacy concern involves Zoombombing, where a malicious user will join a Zoom meeting and show explicit or disturbing images. This could be bad for business, since many schools are relying on Zoom to conduct classes. And if these obscene, violent interruptions become more frequent, administrators might seek another platform.
There's going to be a debate out there about content on Zoom, right? And are they going to be responsible for monitoring and controlling the content that happens on the platform in the way, again, like a Twitter, right, has an entire army of people who are dedicated to monitoring content.
there are ways that users can protect themselves. Hosts can set passwords on meetings, and if a meeting is being recorded, participants who don't want their faces shown can simply turn off their video.
There's nothing, I think, unique to Zoom that wouldn't happen under other video conferencing technologies. I think it's very much just hey, it's incidents that happen, and it's an easy kind of report for press to kind of run with. But I wouldn't necessarily say like this is something that if Zoom does take seriously is going to really weigh on them.
Zoom CEO Eric Yuan issued an apology for security lapses that have been reported this week and said the company will double down over the next 90 days to fix any issues. Another concern is what's going to happen when people go back to work, school, or get back to their lives at home. Zoom makes most of its revenue off of its video conferencing subscriptions, but much of the recent spike in usage comes from people signing up for free accounts.
Zoom itself has been vocal about saying we're not sure how much we're going to be able to create revenue and ultimately profit out of all of these free users we're accumulating.
I guess I'm asking whether you think that a lot of the spike in demand you've seen over the last couple of weeks will stay with you for the long term, or whether it will immediately drop off again when we see this virus subside.
That's a good question. I do not know.
After all, Google, Microsoft, and Cisco, creators of Google Hangouts, Skype, and WebEx respectively, have very diverse businesses. They aren't just focused on video conferencing.
Microsoft isn't going to be nearly as aggressive, neither will Google, because they have so many other things to worry about.
Zoom does have a few other products, though.
Zoom has this big thing right now called Zoom Phone. Basically, Zoom is going after the cloud phone or PBX market to build a lot of business. This is the way that they're monetizing.
There's so many, I imagine, vertical use cases where you can take this technology, package it up for a specific vertical, and then sell it as a different solution.
Zoom expects many of the free users not to pay for Zoom once social distancing measures are lifted, but hopes the positive experiences had during this time will encourage businesses, schools, and others to start paying for the service or adopting other Zoom services.
I think even after this crisis is over, I'm pretty sure a lot of users, they probably still want to use Zoom at home.
Zoom seems to be in the game for the long haul if it can survive a post-COVID-19 world and can continue to fix privacy complaints as they come up.
Companies are going to see firsthand the limitations of using Teams for video conferencing, of using WebEx, and start to say, hold on, we need to reevaluate what solution we're using. And that, I think, opens the door for Zoom and even Slack for that matter.
And it could have a lasting effect on the way we interact with our friends, families, and coworkers.
I was supposed to have several makeup classes because I was going to be traveling. And I realize now that if I had Zoom as a possibility, I wouldn't have had to cancel classes.
If folks really want to keep it going, then it's a relatively low lift, specifically considering that we have volunteers and a Zoom account and a great community.
If we can build up enough of a user base and stuff like that, sure, absolutely. If not, then it was a fun project we tried.
Whatever the future holds for Zoom as a business, Zoom has certainly left its mark on the culture of our unified quarantine.